And a very good evening to you, and welcome to today's edition of Politics 101. I'm David Hinds, of course, joining you this evening. I want to welcome all of you, those of you who are in Guyana or outside of Guyana, in the wider Caribbean, in Europe, North America, wherever you are and you're joining us, whether you are in French Guyana or Suriname, or if you're further afield in Africa, Brazil, wherever you are, welcome to today's edition of Politics 101. We begin tonight on a somber note, as most, if not all of you, would know by now. General Colin Powell has passed away, and of course, he was of West Indian heritage. His parents were Jamaican, and so he's one of us as West Indians. And of course, we mourn his passing. He served America at the highest level. And although he was Republican, and I know many of us identify with the Democratic side of the political aisle in the United States, he was nevertheless a gentleman. One is, of course, always full of emotions whenever outstanding personalities pass away. And General Powell will be remembered as one of the great American personalities. As I said, he served as National Security Advisor, Joint Chief of Staff, the first Black person to hold that position. He later served as Secretary of State under the Republican government of George Bush Jr. And Powell will be remembered as a man of integrity at a time when public servants tend to be short on integrity. We remember him going to the United Nations to sell a war that he himself did not believe in. He did not believe in the war that was launched against Iraq in 2001. But yet, as a loyal servant, he went to the United Nations to sell the war. As it turned out, he was misled by the intelligence community, apparently intentionally so. He was used by the Republican hierarchy to go sell a war that he did not believe in. They used his integrity to go tell a lie. Later on, when it was revealed that there were no weapons of mass destruction, and the Republicans of the time knew that, Powell apologized. He said he was misled. It was a blot on his copybook. And that is significant because politicians and political people don't apologize for anything. Even when people realize that they were lying or they had made a mistake, they would not admit. And Powell did admit that he was misled, and in a sense, apologized to the American people and to the world. And that is very singular. He's very singular in that regard. I saw Colin Powell for the first time when he came to the university I was attending more than 30 odd years ago in Washington, D.C., University of the District of Columbia. And he spoke there, and I got to see him close up. And as we students were wont to do at that time, to get to shake his hand. And I remember he said a lot in that address to us as students, but the one thing that stuck with me was his point that although he was the highest ranking military man in America, he was subjected to racism. And he told us a story of going to meet someone at Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C., and that he was subject to all kinds of questioning by a young woman who was working there. She did not even recognize that he was the highest ranking soldier, and subjected him to all the racial searching that Black people have to go through in America. That stuck with me. And so today, as we mourn his passing, we mourn a dignified Black man. We mourn a West Indian. He was not born in Jamaica. His parents were from Jamaica. He was born in the Bronx. But he was terribly proud of his West Indian heritage. He would call in and pledge donations to the radio stations, the Caribbean programs in the Washington, D.C. area. Von Martin's Caribbeana, John Blake's The Caribbean Experience. I'm not sure whether he listened to the one in Baltimore, but he certainly listened to John Blake a lot. And Von Martin. He would call in. He was a tremendous fan of Calypso. He loved The Mighty Sparrow. And he would speak about that. True West Indian, true gentleman. Gone at the age of 84. You know, in the old days, that would be terribly old. In today's world, we're not so sure that 84 is that old. We could have done with him a little bit more. Farewell. Walk good, General Powell. He left the Republican Party in 2008 and voted for Obama. He voted for Obama over his good friend, John McCain. He felt Obama was transformational. As a Black man, he could not miss the moment when history was being made. We later would learn that his displeasure with McCain was McCain's decision to have Sarah Palin as his running mate. And so he voted for Obama. And when Obama was elected, I remember that night, that he too, like Jesse Jackson and Oprah Winfrey, shed a tear. Shed that tear of finally a Black man had ascended to the highest rung in the executive branch of government in the United States. Like all of us, he himself was free at last. Free at last. He would later support Hillary Clinton and recently Joe Biden. Realizing that the Republican Party had become a stranger to him. But he will not be remembered so much as a politician, but as a man who set the stage for later military men and women of color. It's interesting that after he left government, the press would not refer to him as Secretary Powell. They would say General Powell. He was a general. He was a general in every sense of the word. And so as we mourn his passing today, we should be gratified that one of us walked the walk and set the banners high for others to follow. A Black man commanding the greatest army in the world, commanding an army that he himself, as a young soldier, experienced racism. Commanding an army that up until 1948 did not recognize the contribution of Black men. And Powell was gracious through it all. Farewell, brother. Farewell. 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 And I hope that our younger generations will see you as an inspiration, not just as a soldier or a Secretary of State, but as a man who came from the bottom, who was born in the Bronx to immigrants from the West Indies, and who never let those early experiences be an impediment. To be born in the 1930s is to be born in the heart of segregation. And segregation would have come to an end in 1965. So Powell would have spent his first 3 decades of life in segregated America. And to see a son born in the bowels of segregation would lead the American Army and the American Department of State is truly a great accomplishment. Well, good, my brother. Well, good. And so here we are in Guyana, our country, trying to make sense of where we are. The title of our talk tonight is Mouth Open Story Jump Out. Mouth Open Story Jump Out. And I'm making reference there to a speech that was made by former President Donald Ramotar to mark the PPP's return to power, the anniversary of the PPP's return to power in 1992, October 5th. October 5th. And Mr. Ramotar, in his talk, was warning his party that multinational corporations, international businesses could determine elections in Guyana in the future. Oh yes? Yes. According to the Demerara Waves, Mr. Ramotar warned his audience that multinational corporations and international businesses could determine and will determine the outcome of elections going forward. He drew attention to the fact that at elections time, lots of new parties would come on the scene, and he drew reference to the 11 or so parties that came on stream before the 2020 elections, and made the point that those parties could be facilitated by these international businesses. There we have it there. Former President Ramotar fears international businesses can control Guyana's parliament. Now, this is the former president, Donald Ramotar, saying that he just discovered that international businesses, multinational corporations, external forces could determine the outcome of elections going forward. And he was saying to his PPP comrades that these international businesses could push you out of power, and that they could facilitate small parties, new parties, to help to push you out of power. But I know Donald Ramotar. I've known Donald now 40 odd years, certainly 40 years, since I was a boy. And I agree with Ramotar, except this. He got his tense mixed up. He's saying that in the future, multinational corporations could determine elections, and they could use new parties to help to kick the PPP out of office. Talking in the future. Well, Donald, you know tense well. I know that. What you didn't tell your audience is that you were talking about the past tense and the present tense. That indeed, that is what we have been saying. That international corporations and external forces not will have a say in the outcome of the 2020 election. And that those 11 parties that you are warning your party about were facilitated as part of the regime change occurred in 2020. So, my brother Donald, you are warning of regime change in the future for your party, but your party is benefiting from regime change that happened last year. Mouth open, story jump out. Donald is not stupid. He knows that the regime change that booted the coalition out of government last year could boot the PPP out of government going forward. We don't need to shout the mountaintop anymore. Somebody from the belly of the PPP has said what we have known all along. God bless you, Donald. God bless you. Here is the thing. Not one of the 4 daily newspapers had the courage to put a headline across their papers to say Donald Ramotar agrees with the opposition that external forces are active in determining political outcomes in Guyana. The Morar Waves carried it. But the Morar Waves did not do its usual editorial thing by saying what Mr. Ramotar has revealed there is what the opposition has been saying since last year. You know, the Morar Waves didn't do that. It didn't make the linkage. The Morar Waves could not have not seen the linkage, but they didn't say it. Because all of them, the Morar Waves, the 4 daily, all of them bought into the narrative that the coalition lost the election, and they all silence the part of the narrative that says that external forces help to determine the final outcome of those elections. They all bought into the narrative. So here now is a leader of the PPP saying what the opposition has been saying. They now have to silence Mr. Ramotar. And in the Morar Waves, they carry the story, but didn't do the usual editorializing. You see, Guyana is at a difficult place. A difficult place. When you make fundamental decisions, you trap yourself. People like myself have been banished from the media. I used to be in Taichung News, sometimes 3-4 days a week on the front page. I'm no longer welcome there. I'm no longer welcome at the Stabroek News or Guyana Times. I'm no longer welcome. Why? Because I refused to lock myself into the narrative that says the PPP won the election. I never said the coalition won the election. I've never said that. You know, I've never said that. I also have never said that the PPP won the election. I have continuously said last year's elections were inconclusive. We could not make a determination. The PPP says that they saw rigging at Ashwin. I wasn't there. I didn't see Mingo and his rigging. What I do know is that they managed to get a recount and that recount unearthed threw up some anomalies, a big word. It threw up some teeth in. And it showed that most, if not all of those anomalies were in PPP strongholds. Some of the anomalies were sent to the police, and the police came back and said, yes, these people who you discovered voting, they were not in the country. It's a crime. That's not me saying that. That is GCOM and the police saying that. That I know. That I know. And they've hidden that from themselves because they want to declare a winner. And I'm saying that you cannot look at all of that and declare a winner. Nobody won that election. Elections in Ghana have always been thieving elections. But this one, they take the cake. And it took the cake because for the first time, both parties sought to expose the other. 92, 97, when you come forward, the PNC would say the elections were stolen, but they would go along, you know? This time the PPP decide that they are going to storm the GCOM headquarters. They are going to storm the GCOM headquarters and declare the elections were being rigged. And the PNC decide, you calling me a rigger? I am going to, let's recount. And the PPP said, let's just recount Region 4. And the PNC said, let me recount everything. And when the process was finished, the PNC said, look. Both sides call each other out. The courts, in their wisdom, GCOM chair in her wisdom, look at two pieces of evidence. They disqualify one piece. That is the recount. I said, now we ain't dealing with that, bring that to the petition. And they made a decision based on the allegations of one side. They addressed the allegations of one side and made a determination of election. That's not a free and fair election. It's not a free and fair election. And so those who stuck their necks out and call a winner now have to ride that donkey until the end of time. And they vex with people like me who decide we're not riding that. The elections are not over. There are petitions in the courts. And that evidence that came out of the recount is still there. We can't know the thieving that the PPP said, let's see. Because normally, if you see thief in an election, you wait until this thieving thing go to the commissioners, and the PPP got 3 commissioners. And if there's a thieving pass, then eventually the SOPs and everything will have to go to the commissioners. And this is how Vincent Alexander, in 2011, waited until the thieving that Mr. Boudou was doing for the PPP, trying to thief a seat. And when it went, Vincent Alexander said, but this is thiefiness. This is thiefiness. In 2020, the PPP said a see thieving. Well, they didn't send the thieving to the commissioners, including their commissioners. They go in at Ashmin and they broke up the thing. The same thing they're doing with Breakdown Police Station. Why you burn down the place, but yet I used to repair the evidence? They went in Ashmin, broke up the whole thing, and then said the evidence of our victory is our SOPs. So the elections were declared based on the PPP SOPs. The elections commissioners never got to have the last say. And I'm saying, how can you ask me to declare the PPP a winner based on that evidence? How can you ask me to declare the PPP a winner when people voted for them who were not on the country the same day? The police says 100 and something. We don't know how many more. How can you ask me to say somebody win an election when 48 boxes had no statutory documentation? So you see, one cannot jump on that bandwagon, but the media and the PPP acolytes and some so-called civil society people who don't like the belly of them, they all declare the PPP winner. Oh, it was a democratic election. And it comes sending 3 people. They come, they're going a couple of boxes. They observe a couple of counts. And then they wrote a document that said GCOM in its present configuration cannot deliver free and fair election. That's what CARICOM said. GCOM in its present configuration cannot deliver free and fair elections. But the wisdom of the very CARICOM team that write that said the PPP win. What nonsense are you telling us, Guyanese? GCOM can't deliver free and fair elections, but this 2020 elections was free and fair. Go to hell. And so with all of that, 11 new parties, when you examine who was behind them, and you see who the financiers are. Those one parties, each of them, their leading people were given jobs by the PPP. Don't hear nothing from them. No, they're gone. One of the leaders is the deputy Speaker of the House, a position that traditionally goes to the party with the second most votes. Donald, you're right. Those parties had something to do with the outcome of the elections. They're now in parliament, they got 1 seat. But these are parties that come on the scene and start talking about, non-political things, in the sense that non-controversial things, and on both sides of the political divide among East Indians and African Guyanese, there is always a percentage of votes on both sides that can't stand the 2 big parties. And so whenever these small parties have come on the scene, it is those people who go into those parties. One can go back to the United Force, to the WPA, to the AFC. They all had their start among that middle section, but the majority of them are African Guyanese. Well, not the United Force. The United Force was able to use the Amerindian vote, but the WPA force base was among African Guyanese, and the AFC force base was among African Guyanese. Armed with that history, they come up with these small parties. start saying things that the African Guyanese middle class likes to hear, and they siphon our votes. That was the ploy of those 11 parties, or whatever they were. Some of them were religious parties, some of them were, and all kinds of things. And that was the ploy. We know, of course, we know the role of external forces. Never in the history of our country have we seen the ambassadors so active and vocal in our politics. And we're talking here about a country that is accustomed to have external interference. You go back to 1953, after 133 days, the British came in and they invaded our country, which was still their colony. And from then on, external forces have been very active. We know the CIA was active in the early 1960s. We know that. That's documented. The world knows that. We know that Gump and the other party, whose name escapes me now, but Gump and two Muslim parties were thrown up to thief away Muslim votes from the PPP. And they came up with an Hindu party by Balram Singh Rai, whose name escaped me, the party name escaped me now. And those parties were thrown up to thief away vote from the PPP. The PPP itself was a victim of that. And in 2020, they benefit from it. And Donald Ramatar is warning them that down the road, this thing can come back and bite you all. He's not saying it like I'm saying it. That's, of course, he's warning them. The fact of the matter is whether we like it or not. Our struggle is to try to keep the integrity of our elections intact. But when you get the kind of oil that we have, those who are going to benefit and enrich themselves from the oil will, whether we like it or not, have a big say in who governs. Money. In the United States of America, which they call the greatest democracy in the world, it's money. Money determines an election. To run for a little seat in a little city, you got to raise thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars. You raise it from businesses. And then you have to, what? You have to advance the interests of those businesses. Look what's happening in the Democratic Party now. Look at Joe Manchin. Comes out of West Virginia, was very much part of the coal industry. To win, for a Democrat to win in West Virginia, you're not going to win based on ideology. You're going to win based on interest, private interest. And so Manchin and Sinema and some of the other Blue Dog Democrats, they are in the bosom of big business. And so once they get elected, they're not in there to represent the interests of the Democratic Party. They're representing the interests of big business. Come to our own country. Look at where the PPP puts money. Look at the two first budgets. Big business. Look at the way in which it doesn't speak up when Exxon desecrates our environment. Look at, after fooling them and tell them it's going to renew the contracts or review the contracts, it gets into power and hasn't done boo. elections, for the most part in the world, are determined by moneyed interests. And we in Guyana are now in the big league. They tell us about the Dutch disease and all the other things. They don't tell us about that other disease. That is those big companies with budgets that are 10 and 20 times bigger than Guyana budget are able to determine the elections by pouring money in forming parties and all the other things. We are up against it. And Ramotar is telling the truth. But he must not say it as though the PPP alone will be a victim. He must say the PNC and the APNU and the AFC have been the victims of it. And the media must wipe the boo-boo from their eyes and admit that they got it wrong, those of them who got it wrong, or that they jump on a political donkey they've got to come off. So thanks, Donald. Thanks for saying the truth. Thanks for saying loud that we all hear it. You all don't read the Guyana Times, but I do read it for you all. And my friend over there, Rafilev, went to town on his column, in his column this weekend, on a word that apparently they did not realize had some potency. I myself did not realize it had that kind of potency. A word called undermine. Undermine. It seems to have stuck in the craw of the PPP. And so Rafilev, who is the ideologue, the Indianist ideologue for the PPP, dissected my use of the word undermine and concluded that what I really meant was by any means necessary, including violence, according to Rafi. You see, they so want to pin violence on us. So Ravi, he's a bright guy. He go through, he dissect, he talk about, the various aspects of speech and so forth. And he said, look, David has the literal meaning of the word. And then he talks about the political significance of the word. And then he talks about how the audience received the word, that I was making this speech in August, just after emancipation. So I was playing to the emancipation emotions of Black people. And that if you look at my body language and my facial expression and my emotions, I was appealing to this audience. And where did I make the speech? I went to the first village, Victoria, not my village, but Victoria. So I chose this village. And I said, undermine the government. And I said, Interbeniba Mekwashipa, take notice. I'm saying to people, take a hint. And Ravi got through the thing, got through the thing. And then he said, the reason people like myself are working overtime is because we want the new leader of the PNC to go back to the height, slow fire, more fire. So David Hinds and others are trying their darnest best to influence whoever become the new leader to go back, become height. Slow fire, more fire. And that they PPP supporters are sweating because they don't know if it's a Haitian will become leader of the PNC. That they want the PNC to get back politics to normal, meaning they want the PNC to lick their undermine. And Hinds want the PNC leader like Hoyt with slow fire and more fire. And then he said, well, David uses memory. These black radicals like David, they engage in the politics of memory. So we invoke slavery. We invoke the Middle Passage because we want to rev up you all black people. But listen, Rafi Dev is right. When I talk to black people, or I talk to people, oppressed people, I don't talk to the surface. Yes, I speak to your minds. He's right about that. I don't play. I'm trying just to get votes. What I'm trying is to get right. You know, when you're trying to get votes, you speak to the surface of people's emotions. And then you chuck in a little thing, and then you say, but Indian people also, and Amerindian people also, because you're trying to get vote. I'm not trying to get vote. If vote come, it come. Why trying to get is to get right. And so, yes, Ravi, I do speak to the emotions of black people. I do speak to the minds and the belly of black people. You're right about that. You're right. You're very right about that. You're also right that I want black people to get the best leadership they can get, not a leadership that will serve the PPP's interests, but a leadership that will serve their voters and followers' interests. You're right about that. You're right about my notions of memory. Every group in the world has its narrative of suffering. The Jews never let us forget the Holocaust. Why black people must forget slavery and our narratives of suffering? The Indians in Guyana speak about arrival day. They arrive here in Guyana and were put in the lodges and became Bonga people. That is their narrative of suffering, and I don't grudge them. They have a right to exalt their narrative of suffering. Grant me the right to exalt the narrative of suffering of my people. Or are we not people, you are saying? My friend Ravi says that David wants everything for black people, and he only hears black narrative. He doesn't consider the narrative of other people. Ravi knows that not to be true. He knows that not to be true. I've never in my life preached black superiority. Never. It's crazy, it's foolish, and it hurts black people. I've never in my life proved black superiority. What I've always asked for is equity for black people. Let me remind Ravi Dev, my friend, if you're listening to the program, brother, let me remind you, you accuse me of saying the PPP should go by any means necessary, but your chosen African, Walter Rodney, in 1979, said the PNC government must go by any means necessary. And he is your chosen African. I was, and still is his lieutenant. I wasn't in the cold when he was saying that. I was by his side, and I agreed with him that the PNC government of that day should have gone by any means necessary. And guess what, Rafi? I believe this people go by any means necessary. You see, Rafi, you all just want me to fight black people, to fight the mighty black people for you all. And that's where you and I part, brother. It's okay. When Rodney and the rest of us said the PPP should go by any means necessary, but it's not okay for us in 2021, 40 years later, to say the PPP should go by any means necessary. That's where you and I part, brother. That's where you and I part. So Rodney could say, the government of the day should go by any means necessary, and he's your darling. And Hinds, although I didn't use that, it's used as that is what I mean. But let's assume that's what I mean. Hinds Sight against an Indian government and his violence he preaching. Rodney wasn't violent, Hinds is violent. You see, that's the lie, Ravi. You know better. You know better. Malcolm X, of course, is the one that coined that term, by any means necessary. And you all love Malcolm. But when Hinds Sight, you're all hating on me. If indeed that is what I said, I didn't say that. I said undermining. But Ravi said undermine really means by any means necessary. And he's doing better than Jack Dio. Jack Dio said undermine means violence. Ravi says undermine means by any means necessary, and one of the necessary means is violence. That's why he's a bright boy. I'm not saying Jack Dio ain't bright, but Ravi's a bright boy. This is what we have to contend with. The greatest crime today is for somebody like myself who fought a government, an African government is being called an African supremacist. Supremacists don't fight people of their own. I fought against the PNC, and I can go to sleep at night knowing my conscience is clear, that wherever I see injustice, I stand up against it, even when it's for my race. All of the black community was singing Granger's praises. I was one of the few black persons who said, no, you're making mistakes. That is how I was taught. That's how I was brought up politically. When you see wrong, you say it's wrong. Even of a government of your own. In fairness to Ravidev, he stood up to the PPP. Ravidev was at the Square of the Revolution speaking at Ronald Water's funeral. It's a big risk. So he wasn't the same Ravidev that he was today. The PPP give him hell, go in front of his house, carry on. He suffered under the PPP, but guess what? He has made peace with the PPP. But David Hinds must continue to say what Rodney said 42 years ago, as if the world does not change. I must make peace with the PNC. But you can make peace with the PPP, Ravi. I must make peace with the PNC. The truth is that my peace is not with the PNC. My peace is with Guyana. That there comes a time when the old politics must give way to new politics, always. for people like me, is about our country. And when my party decided that it was going to join with the PNC to form the APNU, we did so in the interest not of our party, in the interest of Guyana. And the PNC killed our leader. But we are saying that we cannot allow the death, the murder of our leader to stand in the way of the maturing of our country. Our leader would not want that. And so it is always about country. I have differences with the PNC up to this day. I mean, it's a new PNC. The old PNC that we used to fight in the 70s, gone. There may be people alive who were part of that PNC, but they are operating in a different time. And I'm not fighting zombies. I'm not fighting zombies. I'm fighting the clear and present danger. And the PPP today is a clear and present danger to Guyana. And more so, a clear and present danger to people who look like me. For us, Black radicals, we have always had to contend, and we continue to contend with the politics of class and the politics of race. And if we want to add in the politics of gender, we've always had to grapple with that. Where does class end and race begin? One of my old professors saw the advertisement with me calling for undermining of the PPP spreading across the world. And he didn't know the context, and he said, look, you know, my student ultra-Black nationalism has taken him there. And I sent a message back to him yesterday to tell me, whole professor, that ultra-Black nationalism assumes ultra-Indian nationalism in Guyana and ultra-white nationalism in other places in the world. And there would be no need for my ultra-Black nationalism, my professor, if there was not ultra-Indian nationalism. I learned that from he, and I had to remind him of that. No, we have to always grapple with race and class. And the PPP would like us to just talk about class and or talk about gender. They don't like us to talk about race because we have been the victims of racism. It is not that Indians have not experienced racism. They have. They have. But the racism we Black people experience is built in to the systems. It's built in to the elite culture, the culture of governance. It's built into the police force. It's built into the courts. It's built into the economy. David, button up your shirt and look respectable. There is ultra-Black nationalism because there's ultra-Indian nationalism. If ultra-Indian nationalism goes away from Guyana, ultra-Black nationalism will go away. And if ultra-Black nationalism goes away, then ultra-Indian nationalism will go away. Ultra-Black nationalism will go away when Black people get their fair share in a country that they give their blood, sweat, more than others. None of the other groups was enslaved. Became chattel. This morning I was on a program with some people, they call it zombies, the zombies of colonialism. And they asked me to speak on the blog on how our Caribbean music can help with these zombies there, because their argument is that what colonialism and slavery did was to bury our history. And that's why they're calling them zombies. And so how can our music play the role of de-zombifying? And so I was talking about our calypso and reggae are helping us to recapture our history, recapture our identity. And I said, since we're in October and they're going to celebrate Columbus Day in America, what we should do on that day is take Columbus and let you go and search for the corpse, the zombies, because he knows where they are. That is why our brother Shadow said, Columbus lie. And Burning Spear say, Columbus lie. He lie. He didn't tell nobody he had to run from Apache. He didn't tell anybody that he discovered a place that was discovered already. Jump in one place. The genius of the mind that developed during the period of colonialism, that went to that place where the colonialists could not see, where the slave masters could not see. Oh, pouring out, Columbus lie. Columbus lie. Columbus is a damn blasted liar. Burning Spear say. Because them in Guyana. And they wanted to lie, and they want to lie undetected. And they feel we didn't go to school. Be stupid. We're accommodating. We like rum and woman, you can give me that. And drunk we and Gary Bassely. So they believe, so they think. So when David Hinds or Walter Rodney say, by any means necessary, or say undermine, they say, well, wait a minute, something wrong with these fellas. Undermine them. Don't ask me on Kidaki tomorrow morning how to undermine. Marching orders, undermine. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to hear some undermining. It's going to be your time to call in and let's talk our story. And those of you who are just joining us, our condolences to the family, the extended family, the community of our dear brother. Our dear brother, in his time, undermined and rose to the top. General Colin Powell of Jamaican heritage. It's gone. We salute you, brother. Take a short break, and then we come back, and we're going to hear from you.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhinds6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.
Thank you and welcome back to Politics 101 as you go to the phones. Let me remind you tomorrow night, tomorrow night is ladies' night. Ladies' night, I'm having on Amanza Walton Desir. Amanza Walton Desir and Tabitha Sarabo Halley, the hyphenated ladies. Ladies' night, they're going to come here to talk about the issues tomorrow. Two beautiful black sisters, Amanza and Tabitha. And I take I take that privilege as an elder to use the word beautiful. So you all can accuse me of sexual harassment and so on. They're beautiful Black sisters. And they're beautiful not just physically, they're also beautiful intellectually. Giants. We're going to have them tomorrow. Amanda, make sure you come out in your numbers to hear the sisters lay it out. And then on Thursday, we're going to have Brother Richard Van West Charles in our second town hall meeting. Aubrey was here last week and it was quite a success. And we're going to have more. Richard is coming on Thursday. The link is on the flyer. When you go to the flyer, look down at the bottom, you see HTTP. Don't click on it. Cut it out and paste it in your browser, and it will take you straight to the registration form. I know some people, and we should have pointed that out, some people are clicking on the flyer. No, you got to cut the thing out and paste, cut and paste. And then once you paste it in your browser, boom, it goes straight to the registration so that you can get into the studio to ask your questions on Thursday. So make sure you all do that now. Get that flyer, cut out the or click on the Jesus Christ. They need to type it in their computer browser. That's what the boy tell me. Yes, you're not going to be able to cut and paste it. You have to type it. So you have to type that link in your browser, and then it will take you to the registration. So please do that before the end of tonight, because there are limited space for people to get in to the room on Thursday. So Tuesday, the two sisters tomorrow, and then on Thursday, Richard Van West Charles coming to lay out his vision because he's running for the leadership of the PNC. We heard from Norton, and it's only fair that we hear from the others. So if you are ready with your calls, we are ready to rock and roll, to hear from you, your perspectives on what we talked about tonight, on whatever is bothering you. 592-604-9722. Let me just, Columbus can't lie like the PPP. They're the lying thief and stinking. You are too much. You are too much. If anybody can lie more than Columbus, I said I'm born yet, but you are saying the PPP lie more than Columbus. Let me just welcome everyone to tonight's program. Wherever you are, whether you're in Guyana, outside of Guyana, it's a wonderful Monday night. It's the beginning of the week, and so we've got to get our tonic to take us through the week, because you know these people will send you mad. You gotta drink your tonic. I don't know if them young people and them children today just drink tonic, but long time we have to have the tonic, SS tonic, build your mind and so on. You know, because it's too much that we have to deal with, all the shooting down with them little boy and you know. I mean, if you catch a man thief, you know, you'll arrest you. You know. The law, the rule of law, say that even the assumed guilty is innocent until proven guilty. You know, and we have to bury our little by them, and you know they're vulnerable in a system that sees them in this old traditional way as non-people, and so we have to every day deal with that. You know, they're taking the money. And they're giving the money to their supporters and so they ain't care, they ain't get no apology. And then making it feel look as though we don't want Indian people to get money. Of course we want Indian people to get money. Of course we want Indian working people to get money. But we also want Amerindians and Black people to get money. Our problem is not that you're giving money to your Indian constituency, but you're giving it to them alone. That's discrimination. That's what we're against. We're not against Indian people get money. God knows that poor Indian people need money, just as poor black people and poor Amerindian people. We know that. But don't try to spin it as though somewhere other we are anti-Indian. I say every day, I have no reason to be anti-Indian because I am pro-black. And if I love myself, that gives me the capacity to love others. Anytime I telling you that I love you, but I don't like myself, I'm lying to you. I love you because I love me. I'm not telling you I love you because my wife is Indian or my friends them is Indian and thing that those foolishness. I can't be racist because I got black friends. No. I'm not loving you because I got Indian friends. I'm loving you because I love me. And in loving me, that gives me the capacity to love human beings, including you. My love for you is not based on flimsiness. It's based on a deep love that begins with me. I have no need. I think we have a caller.
We have a caller. Go ahead, caller.
Good night, Dr. Hinds, and to the moderator. Now on the topic that you're talking about with this racist thing. I first heard it on Mr. Kadaki show this morning where this person wrote up a lot of things about you, saying you call him undermining of the government. No, when first bearing nobody don't I could remember during the election period when Barajak told his supporters that they must chase out Joe. They must chase Abnu out of the place. Anytime they see any Abnu member, and it means that the Abnu members who are the black people, like time they see them in the area, chase them, run behind them, beat them out of the place and that kind of thing. Now you simply stood up and got a problem with emancipation. You simply stood up and said we got to engage and we got to undermine and do what we have to do. And that now has resignated such a bad taste in the mouth. They first started to do things to us. We didn't do nothing. And if you look at black people, for the most part of them, are loving and forgiving people. You could do something, couple mornings after, they will walk away. But you look at the engine, you look at this case with the murder what they had on the day. When you listen to what is emanating, what is coming off of the murderer mouth, it tells a big broad story that this thing was a hate that was going on for a long time that gave vent to that. Now the other thing I'd like to talk about, say go talk on that things with Mr. Paul Slow on the day of his court date. Now, I am not saying he was a bad police or whatever, but those police that physically assaulted Mr. Slow should study that Mr. Slow was once a police like them in the ranks. He could do anything. He was a police like them. He was first a civilian, he became a police and returned to civilian state. And whatever the Slow, they gotta tell yourself, once they live, as long as Slow live, they may be given that treatment and worse. And when it comes to the things that are going on in the country, I hope we could see an end to it, because as far as I see, things getting more and more worse. And I hope I could get into the thing for Tuesday, because Wednesday, Thursday, because I'd like to hear about the petition. The petition seems to be a dead thing, and hearing nothing about that. That is my point for tonight.
Thank you very much, sister. I so love our people. You know, I came on it remembering to talk about how Jack Dio is a chase out people. And Ravi Devon mentioned that, and mentioned that. And I forget. And look, our sisters come on here and fill in that down. When he tell them chase people, they didn't write and say that he calling for violence. But once we use our word, undermine, they say we catch violence. What good for the goose must good for the gander, or else you won't get no pay. We have another caller there, brother.
We have another caller. Caller, go ahead.
Dr. Hinds, and sorry for the background noise. But I'm trying to determine when the PPP done these things, are they actually believing that they're not racist when they're doing locking up Afro-Guyanese? Do they really think that it's just because these are bad black people that are doing things? And I have a really problem when it's like what I'm actually seeing. It's like asking Republicans if America is a racist, and they said, no, we're not racist. It's the same thing with the PPP when they're thinking that Guyana under their stewardship is not a racist country. So again, why is it that we are always forgiving? They're not. And asking the question of equity, right? And I believe I did speak actually when Donald Ramatar was the president. He came to the United States, and I asked him the question if he believes Guyana, right, or if we have a race problem in Guyana. If the question was if he believe we do. We have a race problem. How do we fix it? If we don't, and why do you believe that we don't have a race problem? We never answer that. So it's the same thing when it comes to PPP and of them would say no. We asked Afro-Guyanese and they would believe no. So again, it's all about the finances and who holds the balance of power. So they are not truthful in the assessment of race, because they believe that because they've got all the economic power, that everything is good and black folks need to be subservient to them. And that's my tip.
Unmute your mic, Dr. Hinds.
Get used to this. Yes, do they really believe that they are not racist when they are doing all of these things to black people? Well, you see, what happens is that people of over time internalize this anti-black racism, which is really that black people, they may be equal human beings, but not equal to us. Right? And it's not something that somebody wakes up and say, I tell myself that black people are inferior. It comes over decades of socialization. And the rest of the world is being socialized into this notion of black inferiority. And it affects even people within our own race. People within our own race have accepted the notion of black inferiority. So what has happened over time is that black inferiority has become normative. So when a person of another race practices it, in their head, they're not practicing racism. They're doing what is natural. They're responding to nature, to the law of nature, which says that these black skin people, that if I'm walking down the street at 2 o'clock in the morning and I see one of them, I cross in panic to the other side of the street because my assumption is that's not a zombie coming there. That's somebody coming to rob me at 2 o'clock in the morning. You're looking for dummy. You're looking for spirit. But if they see us at 2 o'clock in the morning, they're not assuming it's a spirit or a zombie. They're assuming it's somebody coming to kill me because they've been socialized that we are brutes. We are brutes. We are non-human. So it's normative. And the worst form of racism is when you are not conscious at the point that that's what you're engaging in. Thanks very much for the question, and for me to get that out, because people say we lift the white racial frame and bring it to Guyana. Look, white racial frame. Racism as a frame, is portable. You can transfer it. Of course, it started as black and white, but it has evolved to become black, brown, red, white, and always black is at the bottom. Always black is at the bottom. Even sometimes, well, they don't do it now, but in the old days, you go to a spiritual service in our country, Guyana, and some of them, they would worship all the other spirits first, the Chinese spirit, the Portuguese spirit, the Indian spirit, the Amerindian spirit, and last, the black spirit is always last. Thank God, they have changed that now. You can go to a spiritual service and the black spirit is right up. But long time ago is white man spirit, Chinese spirit, Portuguese spirit, and then Indian spirit, and then black people and Amerindian spirit come last. So even we over time have inculcated that whole notion of black inferiority. Thank God for the Black Power movement and other movement. We have been able to detox ourselves and to situate our identity and our culture in its right historical and humanistic context. Yes. Thank you all so much. Thanks. And as I said, let's go and register for the town hall meeting with Dr. Van West Childs. The flyer is there. It's all over Facebook and CAMS TV. You can look under my Facebook page and get it there. You just have to type that link there in your browser, and it will take you to the form where you are able to register to get into the room so that you can ask Mr. Van West Childs the questions that he should be able to answer. From all the feedback that we've got, the Aubrey Norton Town Hall was a big success. People continue to view it. We were able to play it on Channel 9. Some people made contributions towards that end, and thank you so much for contributing. 11.e we have to throw little pennies together and expand the process. Tomorrow night, I'm going to have, it's ladies' night tomorrow night. Ladies' night tomorrow night. I have two beautiful Black sisters, Tabitha Sarabo, Hallie, and Amanza Walton Desir. They're going to be here to give their take on the issues of the day. They're both parliamentarians, and that of course is a big distinction. But when they come on to Politics 101, they're really coming to answer questions and to give perspectives on things and to get into the mix. And We live in a country in which our political parties are mandated that 30% of their slate of candidates should be women. We wanted that to be 50. I take pride in that my party, the WPA, fought for that to get into the Constitution in 2001. We wanted more than 30, but we could live with 30 and things. So women are central to the process. And sometimes it's difficult to get the sisters because this country drives so much fear. People have to worry about their family, and if they come on and they say what's going to happen to them and so on, understandably so fear. And so sometimes it's very difficult to get the sisters on, but when they come on, they really give it their all. Is there another caller on the line? Yes.
Go ahead, caller.
Hi. Hello.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Hyde. How are you tonight?
I am keeping on. I am keeping on in high spirits.
Yeah. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So the point for me is I must comment you on your point that you had made earlier, which is some very good topics, yeah. And it's all about the PPP again. You know me.
Yeah.
Is blatantly being racial and is blaming other people for being racial when they are the number one on the list of racialism. And I can't understand why would they be like that, because, for instance, as they were saying that the APNU is being racial, Dr. Barrett is sitting on this man, critics. What is his name? Critics, or critics.
Yes, critics, right.
Yeah, that's the only show I've been seeing him on, because I'm not seeing him on any other show. And he's talking about racism in general, which is, the APNU is being racist. Why would he be like that? And he's the one who is portraying it and showing it out to the entire public. I have not one day seen Mr. Granger or any of his political members of parliament being racial in any circumstances. I can't say that for him, because the man simply does not show those kind of qualities in him. Whereas Barrett Jagdeo is, and his other party member, they are all being the same, and they're talking about racism as if they do know what the meaning of racism is. And the word undermine, what he is saying, they're undermine. It is not even close to what he was saying. That's not even the meaning in the first place. So I think he needs to go back into the dictionary and recheck the word undermine, and then go back to social media and explain to them what is undermine. Dr. Hinds, these people are just ridiculously, I don't know why the hell they're still in power. Somebody needs to get them out of parliament. They're making this country look like a big joke. Sorry to say it like that. I have to laugh at this own opinion on myself saying this. They are making Guyana look as if it's a big joke. Nothing to say about it. It's just hysterically funny with these people. You know what I mean? And then Marijayo is sitting there and just talking about racism, which is, he doesn't even know the meaning of racism. He cannot even see. He started to explain the word meaning, the meaning of undermine or racism. I'm trying to say to everybody, and people are realizing this thing now. But in the end, the point of the racism is to the Indian community, which is on his side. They are blatantly ashamed of what is going on with the PPP now, and they are so ashamed they cannot even come out to say anything about it. They are going through this thing about whatever he's doing to the country. It's like, okay, they are taking it because they have to fight it, because they're the one who supported him and put back the PPP there, which they didn't want Rachel to run the country, well, right. But the Indian society has a lot to blame for it, because they're talking about oh, when the black man been in there, they will do wrong. You know what I mean? Guys, I'm just trying to talk as how they would say it.
Yeah.
And the Indian people is like, okay, they did this, if they voted me, yes. Now when the problem, when the situation got sticky, or, you know, it is stiff, or everything is going way, way bad, and I don't think he won the election, the people won the election either. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of things that are behind curtains that we don't know about. And we can't even begin to imagine what it is. So, and on the other hand, let me just get back to the point. The Indian society is the one who has a lot to blame for that, because they always like saying these things. When Granger was in there, I would hear people talking about this. Oh, a black man ain't, then a black man I do nothing good. Right? That is big time racism, and they're the one who is promoting it to the max.
Yeah.
And I've never heard any of Granger's member of parliament or himself come out to the point and say, oh, them coolie or them Indian, they say, you know, these people are, you know what I mean? It's like, it's silly. And Bashagda is just making a fool of himself. Because you would look at the prime minister. I don't even know what the prime minister look like. I haven't a clue what's his expression or his facial expression is, because I've never seen the man on any public media saying or making any speech. Even though when what is his name? When Sam Hinds was the prime minister, you know, I would see him on public media, like, you know, saying things or doing things or, you know, participating in a lot of stuff. But the prime minister that we have now, I don't even know if the man existed. So that is a clear sign of racism with the PPP, because they just put the man there because he's black, and they want to take shame off of their faces that they have a black prime minister. So, you know, it's not looking that bad. So, Mr. Hunt, I really wish I could say anything more about the PPP for now, so I'll say something else some other day. But you do have a wonderful evening, sir.
Thank you.
Of the night.
And thank you as always for your contribution. I consider your contribution to be missives from the other side. A lot of time we don't get a chance to hear and to see what's happening with our sisters and brothers on the other side of the ethnic divide, and the duress that they are under when the PPP is in government. You know, all governments want their people to stay in line and to keep in line. But I have, in my long political activism, I have always seen how vicious the PPP is to their own people if they only express a sentiment that is favorable to the other side. Though it happens in our community, but I don't think it happens at that same level as it is over there. So it's good to always hear from people who have lived in those communities how stressful it is for them when the PPP is in government also, because they're really forced to say the worst things about their sisters and brothers on the other side that they would not normally say. You see, my sister Amanzo, who's coming on tomorrow, was making that point when they went after her. You know, there's an intensity to the kind of brainwashing that goes on when the PPP, especially when they're in power among their people, and people sometimes act out of fear. As I said, it happens in all communities. I've seen it happen among Black people, but there is a special intensity of it on the PPP side, and the PPP are really experts at making their own people feel guilty for being fair. Because Indian people are fair people. But any attempt to be fair, you'll be punished by the people.
You have a caller. Go ahead, caller.
Good evening, Dr. Hinds.
Good evening.
How are you?
I am fine, thanks.
Okay. be glad to know that. I would like to thank you so much for educating our people. And our young people needs to educate more about our history of our ancestors' struggle. And every time you come on here, Mr. Hinds, I cry. To know how you preaching to the people to do their things. And nobody's doing the right things. They're not listening to you, Mr. Hinds. I applaud you. I thank you so much. I love you. But you know what, Dr. Hinds? We reparative justice.
Yes.
We want reparative justice. Thank you, Mr. Hinds. I love
Thank you. Thank you. And it's reward, and we use it or we want to use it. We want justice. Reparations come from the word repair. It is we who were disfigured by plantation slavery and colonialism and everything that comes with it. And so, yes, repairing is part of justice. There can be no justice for Black people without reparations. And so there we are. I think we've gone past program time. I want to thank you all for being with me this evening. I'm going to be with my brother Kaki, and then tomorrow evening my sisters are coming for us to talk our story. Good night, and again, join me in expressing condolences to ourselves on the passing of our esteemed brother, General Colin Powell. Good night.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhinds6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.